All right, what's going on, everybody? Zach Long here, lead faculty in the Fitness Athlete Division for the Institute of Clinical Excellence. I'm coming to you live today on both Facebook and the ICE Physio Instagram. Today's the best day of the week. It's Fitness Athlete Friday, where we get to talk a little bit about helping people throw weights around, which is always a good thing to talk about. Today we're going to be talking about shoulder instability, which is something that I treat a lot of in the CrossFit and fitness athlete population. But before we dive into that, let's cover a few baseline things. I want to remind everybody that the Fitness Athlete Division just released an ebook that you can download for free. Something that we all get asked constantly is, what is the equipment that I, as a licensed medical provider, physical therapist, chiropractor, what's the strength equipment that I need to have in my clinic if this is a population that I want to address, or if I simply want to provide better strength and conditioning equipment to the patients coming into my door. So if you want to check out that ebook, again, it's 100% free. You can download that at thebarbellphysio.com/ebook. If you're looking on Facebook, that's right here at the bottom of the screen, thebarbellphysio.com/ebook. We've also got a couple of great courses coming up within the Institute of Clinical Excellence. Justin Dunaway's amazing pain science course is going to be doing his online launch again. May 7th, next cohort starts. So jump on that really, really soon. Then May 12th and 13th, Jeff is heading to Santa Barbara, California to do his lumbar spine management course. And then we got Jessica Davis coming to Winston-Salem May 19th and 20th to talk about cervical spine management. And on that same weekend, May 19th and 20th, we've got Jason coming to Blacksburg, Virginia, doing his injured running course. I'm going to that one. I know several other clinicians are going to that one with me, and I'm really excited to head up to that one and learn a little bit about helping runners out a little bit more. All right, so let's dive into talking about shoulder instability. So shoulder instability is something that I treat a lot of. And quite often, I actually end up being the second opinion for a lot of athletes trying to get back to CrossFit, Olympic lifting, or powerlifting, dealing with shoulder instability problems. So a lot of times they have gone and seen another medical practitioner, and they have worked through standard PT for a good period of time, usually around 2 months, and they feel like they've gotten 80 or 90% better, and then they've kind of plateaued. And they're really wondering what they need to do next. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I do here, because I see this so frequently that I'm hoping that by talking about this with y'all here and on the podcast, that you'll be able to take away a few different tools that you can use to kind of help build that last 10 to 20% that unfortunately a lot of us physical therapists are missing in this population. The demands of CrossFit, Olympic lifting, and powerlifting are pretty extreme when it comes to the shoulder. I wrote an article for CrossFit Journal several years back, and I actually looked at an entire year of programming from CrossFit.com, their main programming site. And over 80% of their workouts had a strong shoulder component to it. So that's a significant amount of volume going into the shoulder of CrossFit athletes. So it's something that needs to be doing really well. And then when we look at the movements that they're performing snatches and overhead squats where there's an extreme elevation, hyper abduction, externally rotated position. They're doing dips into extreme shoulder extension, push-ups, bench press. They put the shoulder through its maximum range of motion and then demand that it work across broad time and modal domains. So what I see a lot of times is people that get back to where they're doing overhead pressing pain-free. They're doing push presses pain-free. But when we ask them to go to push jerks, or we ask them to go to overhead squats or snatches, that's when things get a little dicey. And maybe they feel a little pain, or maybe they just feel like they're not secure in those positions. Or they feel good doing a push-up where we go through a little bit of shoulder extension, but we ask them to go through a ring dip where we go unstable and into maximum shoulder extension. Things change quite a bit there. And again, they'll feel those minor feelings of pain, or they'll just start to feel like they're unstable or really lack a lot of strength in those positions. So I want to talk about what I do from an evaluation standpoint, and then more importantly, what are some exercises that you can start incorporating with this population to help them out. I think a lot of times when they get to this 80, 90% better, but they can't get back to some of these really high-end, maximally taxing exercises, it actually comes down more than anything down to confidence. And needing to restore confidence in them that their shoulder is strong and stable. And that's a lot of what I focus on, using some specific exercises that are going to build that confidence. And if we use these exercises, a lot of times in 2 visits, maybe 3 visits, they'll go from that 80% to 100%, and they'll be singing your praises because you're the one that finally got them over the hill. Even though somebody else did all the work and got them 80% better, they'll be loving you for this. All right, so from an evaluation standpoint, a couple things I'm going to look for. Obviously, I'm going to retest their strength. I'm going to relook at their range of motion, just to make sure, that maybe that clinician stopped them a little early when they needed a little bit more external rotation strength. Maybe they aren't aware of how important shoulder extension is in movements like dips, push-ups, bench press. And so I'll evaluate things like that, or shoulder internal rotation, which can have a huge effect on how the shoulder functions in a wide variety of positions. Then I'm going to do a visual inspection. I think a lot of times in the shoulder, we tend to skip over just asking our patient, can you take your shirt off? Do you mind me taking a look at your back muscles and seeing what's going on there? You'd be surprised at how often you do that with these athletes, and you'll find some significant imbalances in their muscle hypertrophy. You'll find somebody whose low trap is significantly smaller on one side versus the other. I found a lot of people that have just random high levels of atrophy in like the infraspinatus, and we have to kind of rule out some red flags for it. But make sure you take the time to look at that. It's something that's just far too often missed. Then I'm going to look at their general movement patterns. For me, a lot of times I'm using something like the selective functional movement assessment, and then I'm going to ask to look at them doing some loaded movements. That might be having them do some in the clinic because I have access to that equipment in my clinic, or that might be if they have some videos that they've taken recently when they were at the gym. The key here, though, is I'm also going to look at the entire body. I am not going to be solely focused on just the shoulder, or even shoulder, thoracic spine, cervical spine. A lot of times we'll find athletes that have, for instance, ankle dorsiflexion restrictions. If your ankles don't have great dorsiflexion, you're going to have to go through a little bit more hip flexion during something like an overhead squat. If you go through more hip flexion, your torso angle is going to be further forward. That means the position your overhead squat and the position your snatch is going to be in is going to be significantly more challenging on the anterior shoulder. And if they've seen a general physical therapist that doesn't know how to analyze the overhead squat, or doesn't take a look at the entire body during their assessment, that's something that can be missed and can significantly increase the amount of pain and instability they feel in their shoulder because they're just in poor positions for developing force out of that joint. Now, after I've taken a look at all of that, let's just make the assumption that this is somebody that did everything right in PT. They've gotten a lot stronger. I feel like their rotator cuff strength is good. Their movement is good. They're not overloading it. We've had a talk about their training volume, and I don't think that their training volume is beyond that their shoulders can recover from. Let's say this person really just falls in this category of somebody that needs a little bit more confidence in these extreme positions. That it's more of a psychological block, where they've been incredibly bothered by this shoulder pain for a period of time, and they need somebody to help break through some of these mental barriers. So let's talk about some of my favorite exercises for doing that. A lot of times I want to start with something as simple like a Turkish get-up. Just get them really dialed into shoulder positioning, get them working into in-range positionings of the shoulder. But I want to progress them fairly rapidly from that. So Turkish get-up, we tend to be in straight shoulder flexion. And for a lot of these athletes, straight shoulder flexion is something that is easy to do and isn't very irritating. So I want to start them with some Turkish get-ups, but I'm going to get away from that pretty fast. I'm going to get them into more challenging positions. And one more challenging exercise than Turkish get-ups that's great in this population is what we call kettlebell arm bars. So kettlebell arm bars, we pretty much start in the same position as a Turkish get-up. But rather than kind of doing a sit-up, the athlete's going to drive off of the same leg that the arm's up in the air with, and they're going to roll themselves onto their side. So if we're dealing with the left shoulder, they'll be laying on the right shoulder. Their torso will be perpendicular to the ground. Not perpendicular, parallel. They're lying on the right side. And then their arm is in straight horizontal abduction. And they're holding a weight there. And I'll have them hold that weight for 30 seconds and do anywhere from 3 to 5 reps of that hold. And I want to use a weight that's challenging enough that I actually see their shoulders shaking around a little bit. And they're in that really far horizontal abduction position, And that's something that's going to help them build some strength and stability in an awkward position, in something that I can almost guarantee they haven't trained previously in their rehab. So bottoms up or kettlebell arm bars are a great place to go in this population. So how much weight? That really depends on the individual. A lot of times I'll go up as heavy as 55 pounds if it's a really strong male. But again, that's all individual. Another thing that I really like incorporating in this population, let's get some bottoms up kettlebell work going. So rather than having the bell hanging down on their wrists when they're doing kettlebell work, we're going to hold the bell up in the air. That's going to basically make them grip that kettlebell handle incredibly hard. That's going to lead to some irradiation. You're going to get a little bit more muscle activity everywhere else. And that kettlebell being upside down is going to be a bit more challenging to stabilize. And so then we do, we can do our Turkish get-ups. We can do our arm bars. We can do just straight bottoms up overhead presses. One thing that I really like doing is going humerus at about a 90-degree angle, parallel to the ground. I have a kettlebell in both hands, and we alternatingly press arms with a bottoms-up kettlebell in both hands. So we're getting a little isometric in the bottom position with one hand while the other one presses overhead, and then that switches. That's an incredibly difficult drill. Shout out to my former student, Sean Jacobs, who really got me using that a lot. And then with bottoms-up stuff, any sort of bottoms-up carry. Get it all the way overhead. Get it down here in this 90-90 position. Get it out to the side in like a 90-90 externally rotated position. Get it bottoms up, start walking around, start moving, start pressing. Great way to progress a lot of people. And then something that patients absolutely love is doing some hanging band technique work. Mitch posted a video of this a couple days ago of him doing some hanging band work. But essentially what we do with this is we take some heavy resistance bands and we attach weights to the bottom of it, and then we either connect that to a PVC pipe or a barbell. And so we've got these bands that have a lot of give to them. So the weight's kind of bouncing up and down a little bit. It's swinging around because it's hanging down off of the bar or the PVC pipe that we're using. It creates a lot of shoulder instability, or a lot of weight instability that the athlete must start to control. And this is a drill that when athletes start doing this, they start to get so stinking confident in where their shoulder is. And then we take this to those specific drills that they're having difficulty with. If they're feeling instability with the shoulder press, we're doing narrow grip shoulder press. If it's with their overhead squat, I'm getting them in a wide grip, maybe doing some behind the neck presses with that wide grip. Having them do some walks in their snatch grip. Having them do some overhead squats with this weight hanging from the bands. And you can even take this to doing push presses and things like that. And that gets incredibly difficult because when you do that dynamic movement to get it up, the weights really start to move around a lot. But hitting some hanging band technique work is my absolute favorite to do in this population because it is really going to rapidly build up some confidence and just get them instinctively feeling like they can control their shoulder a little bit better. If we need to dial back down and hanging band technique work isn't quite where they're ready right now, we can get them doing, walks up and down onto like a Bosu ball. So they're in like a plank position, push-up plank position. They walk up onto a Bosu ball, walk down it. I'll take a big exercise ball, I'll place it against the wall and get them like quadruped. And then they'll reach one hand up into straight shoulder flexion or maybe out into their kind of snatch positioning a little bit more. And they're pressing that ball into the wall. And then I'm coming around and I'm smacking their hand around and providing some perturbations to them there, just getting them used to really rapidly moving their shoulder back into the position that we're trying to maintain. And then one other drill that I really like to do with this population, again, trying to get them into these weird hyperabduction positions, etc., is getting them going from like the top of a push-up position into a side plank with their arms staying straight the whole time. It gets them really just controlling their entire body weight while they're in that horizontal abducted position. And again, that builds a lot of confidence in positions that are incredibly challenging for them. So I really hope everybody took a couple tips away from today's talk that'll help you with these shoulder instability patients that are trying to get back to CrossFit, Olympic lifting, powerlifting, etc. It's certainly something that I think that a few minor tweaks to a lot of our programming can help a lot of athletes get from 80 or 90% better to 100% better in a very short period of time. As always, reach out to me via the Barbell Physio if you have any questions about this stuff. And check out the courses at ptonice.com and the ebook that we discussed at the barbellphysio.com/ebook. I'm going to answer, I have one question here. What's the ideal reps for a warm-up for the overhead squat? That is an incredibly broad answer that I don't even know where to begin answering that. I don't know that there's any ideal reps. Just get warmed up. All right. Everyone have a great day. Hope to see you at a course soon.